Hi there. The Magical Mr. C on tour in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Thought I'd drop a line. If you like what you see, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Share with others. That'll be much appreciated. So let's talk about touring for a little bit. Now, some people would look at me and say, well, touring, are you really sure you're that valuable to say that you're going on tour? I mean, isn't that really kind of inflating your brand? And to be honest with you, it is. It is inflating my brand. Touring lets people know that I have value that spills over outside of my circle of influence, if you will. And I do, in fact, tour. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what touring is not, what touring is, and what it's like for me to be on tour. Now, getting back to this idea of embellishing your product quality, I like doing that. I think that's very good business. So that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that I go on tour. I do like to point out that my services have value even outside of my local circle. And but I don't like to embellish to the point of absurdity, like saying that I perform for the crown heads of Europe, when in reality I perform for a group of middle-aged foreign nationals with receding hairlines. You see, that's absurd. That is embellishing to the point of absurdity. Now, some magicians, some entertainers don't have that discipline of self-awareness, and they'll embellish to the point of complete absurdity. I'll give you an example of one obscure magician that was from the Midwest during the early to middle part of the 20th century. I read about. I don't know his name. I don't remember his name, but he was an amazing magician. He toured the West Coast from Southern California all the way up through Washington State and then back down. And then he went back home, took a rest, a break, regrouped, and then went out west again to do it all over again. But he always touted that he performed for the crowned heads of Europe. And he was so good that people really didn't question that at all. They just took it for rote that he was, in fact, so valuable that he performed for the crowned heads of Europe, and now he's coming to our small town entertaining us. Wow, what a gem, what a prize. He's so good, he's so wonderful. And he did it for many, many years, and then he finally passed away. Now, imagine, if you will, if you're writing up his obituary, you're going to highlight that he entertained and dazzled the crowned heads of Europe, only to find out he had never been outside of the continental 48. He pulled off one devil of a magic trick, I'll tell you. Yes, but see, I'm a little bit more self-aware than that, and I don't like to embellish to the point of absurdity, because eventually those kind of things come back to bite you, especially with our modern technology the way it is now. Yes, it'll come back to bite. So I do pad my resume a bit. I do embellish the highlights of my career in terms of its quality and such, so as to generate business. It's good for business. So I do tour. So what is tour? What is not a tour? And what it's like touring. So let me first start off by telling you what touring is not. Now, see, touring is not relegated just to the superstars. Just because I'm an obscure magician, as it were, just because I may have a limited reputation, and just because you may or may not accept that I am touring. Touring is not something that's relegated only to superstars. Entertainers who are little known to A-list celebrities tour. They do. Yes, every one of them tour. And here's what it is not. A tour is not a set of engagements. So tours are not relegated just to superstars, and tours are not just engagements. What I mean is that, say, for example, I get a series of shows over in New Jersey. I was hired by a company to perform school assemblies uh, up and down New Jersey, and I went to 2 or 3 different towns, and I did 3 school assemblies, and then I went home for dinner and to bed. That was not a tour, that was a set of engagements. Because I live in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania, it's a day's journey for me. Just go to and from, do those shows, I'm good to go. Even if you're driving some 300 miles from your location, or however long that you think that you have the stamina to do this, you go to this engagement, you do your show, you drive home. It's not a tour, it's an engagement. A tour is where you're spending days away from home doing shows, doing series of engagements and whatnot. So this very same company, for example, that hired me to do these day engagements at these different schools, also hired me to do tours in Massachusetts and Ohio and whatnot for 3-4 days, up to upwards of about a week. And I would do this, and so I still tour. In other words, I am away from the house for an extended period of time, staying at different places, doing magic shows, and then coming home. That's when I end my tours, when I come home. Well, some people have asked, how long are your tours and how short are your tours? Well, tours in general can go on actually indefinitely. You can be on tour for years. In fact, give you an example. Have you heard the name Houdini? In the magic community, Houdini is a household name, and rightly so. He was fantastic. He was a household name all across the United States of America for many, many decades, and he was a superstar, a sensation over in Europe, because that's where he predominantly toured. He would sail to Europe and would spend years touring Europe, and then at the behest of Martin Beck, the owner of the Orpheum vaudeville theaters, he would go back to the United States and spend maybe a year or two doing a national tour, and then rest up and then sail back to Europe and do the whole process over again. And the very pinnacle of his career, Houdini was doing this on a regular basis. And so that is to illustrate that tours can last almost indefinitely. But for me, my longest tour is about 2 months. My shortest tour is about 2 days. What is it like touring? Well, let me show you some of the good points of touring and some of the challenges of touring. The good points of touring is it's good for business. It pads your sense of quality and value. That's number one. Number two, touring also gets you to see the countryside. You get to see all these different beautiful places and different cultures, different environments, different experiences, and so forth. So you get to see some of that. So the world becomes a kind of a bigger place for you. Of course, the most obvious benefit of touring is that you get paid. And it's great, especially if you get paid one right after the other engagement. Sometimes, though, you have to wait for payment. That's kind of a drag. But you do get paid, and it's really a nice thing. It's a nice feeling to get paid for services rendered, especially when you're touring. And let's see, another value of touring is that you get repeat engagements, and also your reputation increases and improves, and it opens up other opportunities for different kinds of performing venues, not just one single source. So that's kind of the summary of the benefits of touring. Now, what are some of the hazards of touring? Well, one immediate disadvantage is that you have to get up really, really early to start. Like this morning, I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to get going and make sure that all my stuff is packed, make sure that my rabbit is doing good, it's got plenty of food, plenty of water. Gonna strategize to make sure that my rabbit has plenty of activity and whatnot, not just cooped up all the time. That's kind of a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that I'm separated from my family for an extended period of time now. Personally, I don't really have too much of an issue with that, simply because I grew up in a kind of I mentioned in an earlier video about how I always had to move as a child, and so being in one spot is somewhat foreign to me. Being in one spot for an extended period of time, having roots and this kind of thing, is something that I long to do and I want to do, but I really have a hard time feeling comfortable being in one spot for a very long period of time. So touring for me actually kind of works out nicely, but it's a disadvantage on my family members. In fact, it drives my wife and kids crazy that I can't sit still for any length of time, it seems. So there's that disadvantage, is that you're kind of cut off from your close family and such. That's a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that touring tends to wear you out, because you're constantly moving, you're constantly on the go, you're constantly going from this engagement to this engagement, this engagement, this engagement. So you need to have a strategy in being able to pull it off without killing yourself. So here's what I do. I tend to pace myself, in that though I start off on a tour feeling really excited, yeah, I'm ready to do this, it's tempting to really burn your energy, especially on the first day. Really burn your energy and getting overly excited. But if you pace yourself, you can still do the same quality of work without expending so much energy in the excitement of going on the tour. So if you pace yourself, then that way you're always looking ahead. Okay, I'm doing this show now. All right, take my time, engage in this show. Now I'm going to do the next show. All right, now I'm at the next show, and I'm pacing myself. I'm taking my time. I'm making sure that I'm doing all of the details necessary. I'm not stressing out. And then finally, when you get to your last day, the drive home probably is the most difficult, because you're tired, you're beat, you just want to get home and get some rest. That's the hardest part of the tour, is coming home. But then once you're home, you can rest up and strategize to do it all over again. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a insight of what touring is like. In another video, I'll share with you some of my favorite tours and some of my least favorite tours, okay? So be on the lookout for that. Until then, my name is the Magical Mr. C. Take care. Bye.